1935, the Lions win the NFL championship. The Detroit Tigers take the World Series. The Red Wings bring home Lord Stanley's Cup. Joe Louis begins his rise to world domination. This transforms the Motor City into Detroit, City of Champions. And we're off to the races. We're dropping it in the water, literally. We are at the Packard Proving Grounds. I am just, Charles, I'm pretty excited.
I'm totally thrilled. This is awesome.
So, yeah, it's we're at the Packard Proving Grounds, and we've been telling the story of Gar Woods and just Miss America, the Miss Detroits, and then the Miss Americas, and then Miss America 9 last week was just, it was so much we had to break it into 2 episodes.
We had to break it into, our show went about 2 hours, so we had to break it up into 2.
It did. It was great. And which leads us to the next portion of our story with Gar Woods, and that is the Miss America 10. And lo and behold, it's just about 10 miles away from where we were recording.
Yeah. So we finished up with the Miss America 9.
Yeah.
And we'd already been building this sort of suspense from the beginning. I already talked about how the Miss America 10 was going to be such a big deal. And we, why not go to the Miss America 10 and have it as a backdrop while we're talking about it?
And it's here, and it's magnificent. And there's just we're gonna take a tour around and look at all the Packards here. We are at the Packard's Proving Grounds, and with us before we get into Gar Wood and the Miss America story. We're gonna get the story of the Packard Proving Grounds.
Yeah, what a great opportunity to show a whole new, something I do not, and I will admit right now that my knowledge of Packard and the Packard, Proving Grounds and the factory and everything is subpar. Let's just put it like that.
Yeah.
It's not by any means in my realm of expertise, but we have a man here who. He's got the Packard jacket on.
Yeah, he's ready to go.
He's ready. He's already been talking to us before, and I am guaranteeing you right now that this man will have plenty of information about Packard for us.
The
today.
interesting thing about the Packard Proving Grounds here is I think there's like about 3 employees, and everybody else is a volunteer. There's only just a handful of full-time employees, and everyone else volunteers. And our guest here is one of those amazing volunteers that comes in and helps and keeps this place alive. Please introduce yourself, please.
Sure. I'm Roger Luksik. I'm the immediate past president of the Packard Motor Car Foundation, the owner of the Packard Proving Grounds.
Okay. And how many do you have a Packard yourself?
I have one. My wife has one.
Okay,
nice.
Right on.
What do you
got?
Both are 1941s.
Okay.
Mine is one of 65 ever built. And it's the last year Packard made a 4-door convertible. 1941, has a Super 8 engine in it. My wife drives a 1941 business coupe. It's French silver over Laguna maroon, and she just loves that little car.
That's awesome.
Jamie, Charles, I'm so glad you guys could make the trip out to see us.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. We drove in here. We're going to show some, we're going to put some video, some clips, some photos at least.
Yeah, because you're going to...
The intro, if you've not been out here and you're a fan of the show, you're listening, you're watching this, you have absolutely got to come out here. The architecture is unbelievable. The ambiance around here, this is Detroit, man.
Yeah.
This is, you cannot, if you've not been out here, you need to come.
So, Roger, before we get into what is here,
Sure.
Give us a little bit of the history of the Proving Grounds themselves. We are on Van Dyke. We're north of M59 by about 5 miles or so.
Yes, you're in between 22 and 23 Mile Road.
And
we're exactly midway at 22 and a half on the west side of Van Dyke. And at one point in time, when Packard opened the Proving Grounds on Flag Day, June 14th, and had a big grand opening ribbon-cutting party, this was out in the sticks.
Yeah,
it was 600 acres.
This was up
in size.
north.
Oh, absolutely. It was a square mile.
Okay.
Went from 22 to 23, Van Dyke to Mound.
Okay.
And it contained a 2.5 mile high-speed oval test track.
Nice.
18 miles of badland roads, including water pits, sand pits, clay pits, steep hills, descends through sand. It was a place that Packard wanted to wring out all of the problems of a Packard so that a customer had a high quality car when it was delivered to them.
And that's what we were like kind of talking about before, like, before we even started the show, was like, when you hear, we're at the Packard Proving Grounds. I guess I thought that it was like a place to kind of, just kind of test out some new vehicles or whatever. But I didn't realize the type of beating when they say test out a vehicle.
Yeah.
This is taking the idea of testing a vehicle to its ultimate, zenith. Like they're explain just to say about just what kind of a beating they would put these cars through. I mean, it's a big oval track, and you can see the photos we're going to put up on the picture.
Average mileage of a driver in the mid-30s was less than 8,000 miles.
Okay.
Packard routine test is 10,000 miles in 10 days.
Whoa.
25,000 miles in 25 days. And this would go round the clock, day and night, 24/7.
So it's this huge oval track, and they're just running these cars 24/7 hard every single day.
And then they take them off, put them through the 18 miles of Badland roads, over Belgian blocks, rough paving bricks, railroad ties, rutted roads, dirt roads, gravel roads.
Your job is just to beat these things all day and all night. And then when one driver's tired or whatever, they pull them out and stick another driver in, and he's got to beat that car to death. Like it's awesome.
Yeah.
And this continued throughout Packard's history. They were setting world's records of endurance in cars. In the mid-30s, 1936 model came out, and they wanted to prove how good that car was going to be, and because it was new to the market, and they put on 15,000 miles at an average speed of 88 miles an hour and this is with a stock car.
Yeah.
And in the 50s, they're driving cars 25,000 miles at an average speed of 105 miles an hour.
Wow.
Including pit stops, tire changes, gassed up.
Whoa.
Rolling all the time.
And what's cool is that this complex is set up when Jamie's going to put some pictures on the screen showing it. Yeah. But it's set up where there's living quarters and like bunkhouses all over the place, and they're beautiful. You said
they're nicer than bunkhouses.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying the style where you've got a ton of room for each person's got their own. Yeah, you're right, bunkhouse. But it's set up to have large numbers of people.
Absolutely.
Here, so that they can people can. I mean, it's a whole facility for cooking, eating. I mean, this is a whole place. People got to live here while they're testing these things every single day.
The major buildings, when you first roll up to the Packard Proving Grounds, are
gorgeous.
First of all, you should know that our entire campus of buildings, except the one we're in right now, and I'll explain later, were all designed by Albert Kahn. So we're working with folks from the Albert Kahn Foundation to keep our history and authenticity of restoration accurate. Mm-hmm. And in our first building you come to is the gatehouse. And in that building, the chief test engineer, his family lived out here 24/7. Mm-hmm. And then on the second floor, there were bed and breakfast rooms, so to speak.
See, that's a nice way to put it. Yeah, you're right. The bunkhouses. I feel bad now. It wasn't. I think in bunkhouses because of some other project I'm working on. But Charles, they're way. Especially Albert Kahn is not. You don't call Albert Kahn and go, "Hey, Albert, we need to have some bunkhouses."
No, you don't need that
for a cabin for a stay away.
When you're working for Packard,
you're top of the line.
Top of the line. So you're going to get a nice bed and breakfast room. And then there was also a room up there for the guys to sit back and have a cognac after work or brandy after work and a cigar. And those engineers then monitored all the tests that were going on. And the second building is, today we use it as an events building where we rent it out for corporate events, weddings and that. And that is our main income generator, and the profits from that give us the money to restore more and more of the Packard Proving Grounds every year.
Because people want brides look by DJ weddings and parties, and available for your bar mitzvah. No, actually, I've never done a bar mitzvah, but I've been doing weddings for like 30 years, and brides, it's a new, probably in the last 10 years, have been really looking for unique venues. They're tired of the same old, wedding halls, just, and they're tired of just and so they want to do it in a unique place. And I see brides going crazy for this place.
Oh, this place, it's unbelievable. That hall is just, I haven't even looked in it yet, but the exterior, you're looking at it going, this is like one of the coolest places.
Yeah.
I've had young brides come to me or the bridesmaid and say, my friend got married here. I got to get married here.
Yeah.
And I asked him, this was a number of years ago, why don't you want to go to your dad's country club?
Yeah.
No. Don't want that. No. This is our style, and some people like barn weddings. Some people like the urban atmosphere. But out here, we have an industrial urban atmosphere. We have the car collection. We've got history to tell, and we've got plenty of room for parking for the brides, their guests, and it's out in the suburbs.
Yeah.
Just like Packard hid this place out here.
Yep.
In what was Utica, Michigan, to keep the prying eyes away when prototype cars were being tested.
Yeah.
So you get that same ambiance. When
Yeah, you do. And
wedding.
that was the thing we noticed, we're I was coming from getting something done with my car down the street, and you're coming down, Van Dyke, and it's like this really heavily commercialized area. And Jamie's like, oh yeah, we're going to take a left right in here. I'm like, it just seemed, I'm like, this is where it's at, and you take a left in, and it's like it's almost like it's so
right.
It's like all of a sudden you turn into history. You go from the separate, heavily commercialized zone where it's like you just kind of pass it on the street, almost don't even notice it's here. Yeah. And once you turn into it, you're back. This is Albert Kahn buildings. We're in Detroit history. We are drenched in nostalgia right now.
I always say knee deep. And if you notice when you drove up, all the commercial that's new is pushed up right up against Van Dyke.
Yeah.
We're set back.
Exactly.
A nice front yard.
Oh, absolutely.
Several acres of front yard.
Yeah.
And this is what Packard wanted. They're, not only they're building quality automobiles, but they want their customers to know where their cars were tested. Yeah. They want to have parties out here for their salesmen. They want to have new model introductions out here.
Oh, nice.
And they did that throughout their history.
Yeah.
When Packard had its 50th anniversary in 1949, all the cars were painted gold in a series, and people would come here, take a train from St. Louis, Omaha, wherever with your salesman, and you would jump in your brand new anniversary gold Packard and drive home back to Omaha.
But see, that's to say.
So it was also used for corporate functions too.
Yeah.
I mean, it almost brings a tear to your eye, man. That's like nostalgic Detroit right there. Just bringing the automobile into it. The parties out here, the fact that the buildings are still here to actually celebrate into this, that they actually use those buildings to celebrate, and that those parties were there. It wasn't just some, place you just, beat up with some cars. This was like this was an actual place that they used for celebrations, just like you can use it today for celebrations.
Yeah.
Well, we do.
So what else do we need to know about the history of the grounds itself?
Well, I wanted to tell you about the building we're in.
Sure, okay.
The event building is where, after a car did a 10,000 or 25,000 mile test, would be taken in, torn down, literally every nut and bolt.
Yeah, it looks like about a 25 bay garage.
Well, it is.
Yeah,
it's 7,000 square feet of garage space. Had dynamometers in there also in a separate area, and engines would be tested there till something failed.
Okay,
and then they found out why it did and made it better. All right. And they did the same thing with the cars. Then World War II came around, and Packard did three things in World War II. They built the Merlin engine under license with Rolls-Royce that went into the Mustangs aircraft. They built PT boat engines. 3 went into every PT boat built. And they let the government use the property for tank testing.
Okay.
Talk about Detroit. We're on Van Dyke, right?
Sure, yeah.
11 and a half miles down the road is the Chrysler Tank Arsenal building.
Yeah.
So we get involved with World War II a little late. Rest of the world got involved in November of 1939, September of 1939. We get involved after the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. 42 is real quick, and they decide we're building tanks. They need to be tested someplace. So the government leased property, gave it to Chrysler, and Chrysler would take tanks off the line, drive them up Van Dyke.
Jeez.
Come in the same driveway you did and do laps on the infield of the high-speed track, but then use the 18 miles of badland roads, those Belgian paving blocks, those railroad ties, those steep hills, those water baths, the clay pits. The tanks got to play in. Well, they needed to be tested just like the cars did. But they didn't have a building. So the government built this building in 1942.
Okay.
It's designed by the same guy who designed Meadowbrook Hall. But does it look like Meadowbrook?
No, it doesn't look quite like Meadowbrook.
So William Capp, the same architect of Meadowbrook for fancy Matilda Dodge's home near Oakland University, built this place.
Okay.
Then they rolled the Sherman M4s and other tracked vehicles that did their turn on the test track and the steep hills and brought them in here, and they got torn down every nut and bolt.
So they came in through those bay doors.
The bay doors that were fronting us.
The bay doors are built big enough to have tanks come in here.
Yeah. Exactly. And then there's, on the other side of Miss America, is a tall bay where they could actually lift a Sherman M4 up off the deck and roll it the length of this 110-foot long building.
Wow. So what are some of the things when somebody comes to the Packard Proving Grounds? What does the tour consist of, and what are they going to see? Because there's just rows and rows of cars in here.
Places,
Well, we've got all the historic buildings.
Okay.
But the buildings aren't much without a story. Mm-hmm. So we tell the story of all the world's records that were set here. For example, on opening day, Packard wants to show off their latest toy. Mm-hmm. GM had their proving grounds in 1924. Packard opens up in here in 28, but they want to show the rest of the world and the auto industry what they're up to. So they have a grand party. And during that grand party, they want to show how fast a track, the design that Albert Kahn drew, was going to make this a world record track. So they brought in two drivers that had been at the Indianapolis 500 just a few weeks before. One of them, Leon DeRay, set a new world's record at the Indy track at 122 miles an hour.
Whoa.
Yeah, big time. That record stood for, I believe, 7 years.
Okay.
So, that was a strong mark that he put up in 1928. Anyway, they bring him, he didn't win.
Oh.
So he wants to prove himself. And Packard says, come on out, bring your racing partner, and let's do some fast laps. But we're going to have a nice party here. We got some dignitaries. Have some fun out there, Leon. But be careful. We don't even have the guardrails up. We're so new. I mean, this is opening day.
Be careful.
Paint's still wet out here.
Be careful. You're telling a race driver, be careful. Okay.
You know what his answer was?
Okay.
I don't need your guardrails. I won't use them today. And he goes out and he blisters the track at over 148 miles an hour.
Nice.
That record stood till 1953.
Whoa.
Packard had the world's fastest closed course race course in the world. And they used it to good advantage.
Yeah.
So we tell that story. I think it's a great story. Packard, being the master motor builder, is building, during World War II, PT boat engines, but they're also building marine engines. And we'll talk about what I call Max, Miss America 10, because she is a maximum boat. Mm-hmm. They also were building airplane engines. They did the Mustang engine in World War II, and they did the Liberty engine for aircraft, the basis of many of Packard's engines.
Yeah, we talked about it on the show. The Liberties,
Well, they also wanted to have the world's first diesel-powered airplane. And not because there was a government contract for it, because Packard is always striving for quality and innovativeness. They built the world's first airplane, a diesel engine, mounted it in a Stinson airplane, and it flew from a hangar out here at the Proving Grounds. Set a world's record off Jacksonville Beach, Florida, for having because diesel is so fuel efficient, set a new world's record of staying aloft 84 and a half hours.
Oh, my goodness.
Set a new world's record. That record wasn't broken until 1985.
Oh.
So that was over a 55-year record that was held. That plane also was the first plane to ever where you could talk to a pilot in flight using a radio as opposed to the old Morse code that a pilot had to use. A diesel aircraft engine doesn't have the static electricity of rotating parts, the distributor, the electrical wires.
Versus what? When you say a diesel versus what was the diesel? Just a regular gasoline? I mean,
diesel self-ignites. It fires because of compression, spontaneous combustion. So once you get it lit, and there are glow plugs. Anybody who drives a diesel pickup truck knows this, that you start the engine and once it gets rolling, it just diesels.
Yeah.
So the fuel is such that once it's compressed at a high enough compression ratio, it will self-ignite, and that sips fuel. Well, that airplane engine that Packard designed set world's records, and eventually was surpassed by technology in gas engines, but still.
Well, what was the previous fuel that was preventing it from being
high octane aviation gasoline?
Okay, just all right.
But that required a continuous spark from the spark plugs, always firing at every rotation. So when you're cruising at 3,000 or 4,000 RPM, all you're doing is creating static electricity, and that static electricity ball up from the engine is a shield. Is a shield preventing a weak radio signal from penetrating and the pilot hearing it. All they could hear would be the strong dit-da of a Morse code key.
Yeah, you said it was like strapped to somebody's leg. Like
right. They mounted it on a plate.
Yeah, so you'd feel the vibrations.
What's the weather like in Poughkeepsie?
Yeah, that doesn't.
I can't even spell Poughkeepsie, let alone Morse code it.
So there were all kinds of innovation stories we tell. It's not only the buildings, it's also the history of. We have 18 cars in our collection. We have PT boat engine. We have Max.
Yeah, and they're beautiful. I mean, these cars are absolutely gorgeous.
So
you just look at them in awe.
Yeah.
Like, man,
so
got a whole history of them here.
Is this the tour in here? Is this
this is part of the tour? Yes.
The crux of the Are there more cars around, or are these all the cars in here?
We own 18. Okay. We have a couple on loan to us from the Detroit Historical Society that are really significant cars that the city owns.
Okay.
We have a 1915 Packard V12. Packard was the first automobile builder to put a V12 in an automobile.
Okay.
And the car that we have is rather special because it was owned personal car of the president of Packard, Henry B. Joy. Well, at the same time he was president of Packard, he was also president of the Lincoln Highway Association.
All right.
And the Lincoln Highway Association is the first transcontinental highway going from across the United States. It went from New York, Chicago, Omaha, Wyoming, Salt Lake City, down to San Francisco. And the vehicle that we have was used on inspection trips by Henry Joy, driving transcontinental, inspecting the road work while the highway was under construction.
Wow, that's great. So is that that red one over there?
The red one.
Yeah.
1911.
Yeah, it looks like the earliest one you got, right?
Yeah.
It is.
Okay,
It
okay.
is.
Yeah, that one caught my eye immediately.
Well, it should. As bright red as it is.
Yeah.
Do you know where the Foundation Hotel is in downtown Detroit?
I do.
Okay. You know that it is a former fire station.
Yes.
That's where that flying squad truck was housed. Right. It's really not so much a fire truck as it is a delivery vehicle to get the firemen on site. It does carry some modest firefighting equipment, but it's really to get the crews that handle the steam pumps and things like that were powered in 1911 out to the fire, pumping water, and this is how they got there fast.
Okay.
But there are photographs of that vehicle, 1911, sitting in front of what today is the Foundation Hotel and Apparatus Room restaurant.
Sure, yeah. Love that. That's a cool place.
So we've got that, and we have one of the last cars. We have a car from 1952. It is one of 6 built. One of 4 still known to be existing.
Okay.
And it's owned by the city of Detroit, and it is a car called the Pan American. And these 6 cars were built to take to international car shows.
Okay.
They'd send one off to Italy or London or Germany, and they'd float around to various car shows. And the one we have is the only one that they screwed with. Some people hate it. Some people love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
What did they do to it?
Well, all cars were built identical.
Sure.
except for this one.
All right.
And so 1952, it makes the show car circuit, makes the rounds. And they said, well, what are we going to do for 1953 or 4 or 5 or 6? Well, they let the other cars, they just change the paint color, but ship them out on the road. They brought this one back, and every other year they would change it. Add this, add that, take off this, take off that. So the car, instead of having 53 tail lights, what was ended up on the 53 car, now are the 1955 and 56 tail lights.
Okay.
The front end changed. Now they've got the 55 and 56, well, actually the 56 hooded headlights. So it became more of a, some people thought the reason they hate it is, well, this is like a nice aging actress that had one too many faces.
Okay.
And then others say, no, they like the purity of the original car. But to me, with this one, you get to see and compare what the design change was and where Packard was progressing as they were slowly going downhill, getting ready to leave Detroit.
Out of the 18 cars on site here, which one is your favorite?
Well, the two that I just mentioned, Tom.
Yeah.
They do. There's a number of cars here that have all different innovations. We have a display chassis behind us on the other side of Max that shows a torsion bar suspension that Packard developed for the 1955 and 56 models that hasn't been replicated since, but it gave a significantly smoother ride, better handling, better braking, all because the chassis doesn't allow the car to sway or buck or tilt back on acceleration. Well, we can see that later, but there's a lot of innovation. But those two cars, first car with a V12, last of the concept cars, kind of hard to beat those two.
Yeah. I'm loving it. Are there any other famously owned vehicles here? Or,
famously owned, not so much famously owned, but we have a car that's directly in front of us. Actually, two that look to you to be almost identical.
Sure. Yeah.
They're both 1940 Packards.
All right.
They have different engines. One has a standard 8, one has a super 8. But the one that makes it really unique is the one with air conditioning.
Oh,
geez. Packard was the first automobile company to put air conditioning in a car. And that occurred in the fall introduction of 1939 on the 1940 model Packards. And we have one of those here. The air conditioning equipment, the condensers are mounted in the trunk, and the air ducts are mounted in the back seat. That's because that's where the owners sat typically.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
You know, the hired help sat up front.
Yeah.
So you had to have the
back cooled down.
Exactly.
That's
where
no
the owner's cabin is.
They had the air conditioner that early.
Yeah.
No idea.
Charles, do you know of a car made today that doesn't have an air conditioner?
No, not at all.
Mine's not on purpose.
Mine's not working today. Mine and Jamie.
Maybe some exotic cars, but no. And who would ride in a car today without air conditioning?
Well, me and Jamie kind of.
Okay.
Yeah. That's.
Well, I mean, mine kind of works, but a little cool air, and I don't know if it's from the air conditioner or just the fan. But
so, all right. So you'll see the buildings, and you'll see the cars in here. In the what do you call this building? Is it the garage, or what
we call this the engineering tank test building?
Okay.
To keep the history authentic, this was where the tanks were stripped down, every nut and bolt. Then, tested what was right, what was wrong, just like a Packard would have gone through. And
that's one thing you guys should get in here is a tank, man. Just show how it fits right that door.
Yeah.
Do you know how much a tank weighs?
Yeah. Well, I know. But some of these cars are pretty heavy too.
You think as part of the history there might be a tank on site someplace, but it's probably hard to maintain it outdoors and everything.
Well, we've got a trustee who is a graduate of West Point.
Oh, okay.
He flew helicopters in Vietnam.
Okay.
He's looking for the tank.
Good. So it's on the wish list. It's on the wish list. Yeah.
All right.
We have a long wish list.
So after this building on the tour, what does someone see?
The grounds itself. We do have
what's left. Yeah, out of the test track
sure.
and all the.
We have the last 7 of the original nearly 600 acres. We have the last 17 acres.
Okay.
All the major buildings, the aircraft hangar that was on the infield of the test track. we picked up and moved 3/4 of a mile.
Oh, good Lord.
Well, it was important to us. I mean, it was a real piece of history. How do you tell the story of the first diesel aircraft or the other engines that Packard did for airplane testing if you don't have the building?
Yeah.
Why would we leave it out there in the field to rust away?
Sure.
So we picked it up and moved it onto our site. There's the timing stand, and we have almost 500 feet of the original test track.
Okay.
And the timing stand, 2-story timing stand, where the cars were observed under the watchful eye of the engineers that were conducting their test here at the Packard Proving.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Roger, I appreciate it. It's this is great, and we're going to pause, and we're going to continue with the next episode of Detroit, City of Champions, and we're going to dive into, you lovingly call her Max.
Yes.
Sitting behind us, continuing our story of Garwood, Detroit City of Champions, one of the 33 championships that Charles Avison wrote the books about.
And we mentioned Henry B. Joy. Henry B. Joy Jr. was one of the 33 champions of this season.
Oh, so what did Henry do?
It's a little bit of spoiler alert. So we haven't talked about it yet, but he was a 20 gauge skeet shooting champion.
Oh, okay, all right. So
it's part of numerous. There's all kinds of firearm championships that are involved. There's Detroit Police pistol shooting. Yeah. One that we had a championship, that was one of them. I mean, but it's just interesting because you see Henry B. Joy's name all over the place on roads, his name is all over the place. So
the Packard engines, and here's a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing. So what I know is that the Miss America 9 had the Packard engines, and Miss America 10 here, the Max, the engines in there are gorgeous. But from what I understand, the Miss America 9, the government recalled those engines and used them as prototypes for those big bad boys over there that ultimately powered the PT boats of World War II. Right.
You're pointing to the PT boat engine and also very innovative engine. I don't know if you want to get into it now, but it's built specifically for minesweeper use.
All right.
And depending on the length of the minesweeper, they would use either 2 or 3 or 4 of those engines.
Good Lord.
In a minesweeper.
Yeah.
And minesweepers, not to get too far off in the weeds, are all wood-hulled boats.
Okay.
Because mines are set off in the water not by touching them as so much. That would definitely set it off, though. But they have sensors that look for large magnetic anomalies in the water. So you don't even have to touch the mine. The mine senses a large magnetic field, blows off, and puts out a concussion shock wave that can disable a steering of the boat or crack a seam in a hull. And all of a sudden, that boat's no longer in the fight. Okay, so now you want to destroy mines, so you build minesweepers.
Diesel engines and
yes, that's part of the deal. But the wood hull of a minesweeper is important. It's not magnetic. Well, that's all well and good if you got the silver one in the drawer is stainless steel. That's not magnetic. All the bulkheads are aluminum, probably.
Yeah.
But what do you do about the engine, the diesel, down below in the hull? You make Packard designs an engine that is all non-magnetic.
Wow.
It's brass, bronze, stainless, Monel.
And that's one of those guys over there?
That's one of those guys over there.
Nice.
Brand new, fresh out of the crate.
Nice.
Still sitting on its shipping crate, NOS. And therefore, you can now take a minesweeper pretty much with diplomatic immunity and drive through a minefield and not worry about the engines putting up a magnetic signal for the mines to detect.
And that, and so all these innovations, because with what Garwood did with his, just bigger, better, faster, and they needed those PT boats to move, and so the government was like, "Can we see what you did to that?"
Yeah, can we?
And they used them as the prototype.
Bring Garwood into. We need some fast boats.
Yeah,
where are we going to ask? Garwood.
Garwood, yes, the fastest boatman on the planet,
and his engine builder.
Yeah.
So you bring Packard on board, and there are 3 12-cylinder engines in every Packard, and they needed aviation gas to get the horsepower to push that 80 3-foot boat through the water up to 55 miles an hour.
All right, so we're going to continue and we're going to pick up with Max here behind us, the Miss America 10, and more about Garwood. This was kind of a little trip down a little side road, because how important Packard is.
Unbelievable here.
Like, subscribe, leave a comment wherever you're listening to podcast stuff, do those podcast things. We really appreciate you. Chris, as always, is chiming in. He said, Charles, $100 right now if you run and jump in the boat.
Man, we can already see in it, Chris.
We got to wait till Roger leaves.
Yeah, we got to wait. We're waiting for Roger.
We'll be in there. We'll be taking a selfie in there for sure. And then Michael chiming in saying he just found our podcast. He's up to episode 15 and enjoying it. So Michael, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate you.
As well. And everybody else who's listening and following along. Again, like, subscribe, leave a comment. We appreciate you. We're going to pull up the anchor for just a little bit, and then we'll be back with more of Detroit, City of Champions.
Glad you guys could come out.